Everyone, please wish my friend Alex a happy birthday, and here are some movie recommendations based on his four favorites, which are Goodfellas, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Boogie Nights, and Almost Famous. I feel like people don't typically think of all of these movies as period pieces, but they all take place in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, despite being made within the last 35 years, so I think the label fits. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Boogie Nights are both set against the backdrop of the film industry, albeit in Boogie Nights it's the adult film industry. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood depicts an alternate history. So with all that in mind, my top pick for you is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's set against the backdrop of the film industry and takes place in an alternate version of 1940s Hollywood. It's a crime film like Goodfellas, and like Almost Famous, it follows an outsider navigating a close-knit community, but in this film it's the world of cartoons instead of musicians. I think you'd love Catch Me If You Can. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's set in the 1960s, was inspired by a true story, and features Leonardo DiCaprio in a comedic role. It's also a coming-of-age film like Almost Famous, about an ambitious young man like Boogie Nights. Since all of your favorites have ensemble casts, two of your favorites are about filmmaking. Goodfellas is a crime film and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is satirical. I think you'd have a lot of fun with Seven Psychopaths, which has an ensemble cast and is a satirical crime film about a screenwriter. A Face in the Crowd depicts how power corrupts people, like in Goodfellas. The protagonist is a musician, like many of the characters in Almost Famous. Like Boogie Nights, it depicts a character's rise to stardom, and like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's a satirical exploration of the entertainment industry. Speaking of films that satirize the entertainment industry, I want to recommend Bamboozled as well. Another one of my top choices for you is A Bronx Tale. Like Goodfellas, it's a mafia film from the early 90s starring Robert De Niro, and this is his directorial debut. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it takes place in the 1960s. Like Boogie Nights, it depicts a young man who's drawn to this, what I guess you could consider a sort of morally gray subculture. And like Almost Famous, it's a coming-of-age film. Speaking of Robert De Niro movies, I was surprised you didn't have Jackie Brown marked as watch, which was written and directed by Tarantino, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And even though it isn't set in the 70s like Boogie Nights or Almost Famous, it pays homage to 70s blaxploitation films, so I feel like it fits that 70s vibe. Speaking of Robert De Niro, again, I think you'd love Heat. Not only is it a stylish crime film like Goodfellas, it also has an ensemble cast like all four of your favorites. Since your favorites are period pieces with ensemble casts, I want to recommend The Last Picture Show, which is also a coming-of-age film like Almost Famous. Adventureland is another coming-of-age film set in an earlier time period with an ensemble cast. I feel like this is such an obvious choice, but Casino is another Scorsese movie starring Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci with a lot of thematic similarities to Goodfellas. Since you like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think you'd enjoy Barton Fink, which is also a satirical black comedy about the film industry that takes place in Hollywood. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is a crime film with an ensemble cast like Goodfellas, but it's also a black comedy like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Since Goodfellas is a biographical gangster film, I want to recommend American Gangster. But another gangster film I think you might like is Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai. And a couple other stylized crime thrillers I think you'd enjoy since you like Goodfellas are Thief and Clute. I feel like I need to include more alternate history films since you're a fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but you already saw all my favorites. But one you didn't have marked as watch is Insignificance, and I think that's worth checking out. The combination of Boogie Nights and Almost Famous makes me want to recommend Velvet Goldmine, because like Almost Famous, it's about music and it's set in the 70s, but its depiction of the 70s reminds me more of Boogie Nights. And since Almost Famous is a coming-of-age film that revolves around music, I want to recommend a few more of those. So I think you might like Pump Up the Volume, Sing Street, and Swing Girls.